morning. We're about to start the press conference of the ministers, first the ministers' statements and then the questions. First, we'll start with the statements and then we'll have time for questions. I would like to invite the Lithuanian minister, Kęstutis Budrys, to start. Good morning, everyone.
Brangi draugė, labai malonu.
My dear friend, I'm very happy to meet you here today in Vilnius. We see each other often, very often, many times already this year, but it's a great honor, incredible honor to welcome you at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That is an extraordinary opportunity, which I'm proud of and happy with. I know the minister from very long time ago, not only in my time as a minister. I also knew her when she was Deputy Secretary General of NATO, a wonderful expert of public diplomacy. And Baiba was the first who congratulated me when I was nominated to the position of the foreign minister. I will never forget this, and that is exceptionally kind to me and nice. Today we have a number of topics that we share as a region, as countries of the region, as countries of NATO and the EU, and we also have shared the links that neighboring countries. There are things that we have bilaterally dear aspects, and today we're taking part in the Baltic Award ceremony, which will symbolize our shared historical past. And we also have the agenda, a number of topics on the agenda which are mutually important, and we managed to address those issues effectively together with Latvia at the EU. That is resilience building, building our capacities of our states as a pre-front states. We work on anti-drone systems, building resilience of our societies, fighting all the activities of hostile countries in various operations. We share quite some challenges as Baltic states, and we look for solutions related to the shadow fleet and the security of the Baltic Sea. We also have our shared efforts to increase our support to Ukraine, both directly and indirectly by looking for solutions in cooperation formats, so-called Pearl mechanism, the European EU measures, and we have agreed today that the main factor which will predetermine future security architecture of Europe and our security and at the end of the war in Ukraine, and we have a number of issues that we are coordinating in this area. So that is EU, that is NATO, those are regional formats, and we also have another very important format that are our activities in global multilateral format. And I am happy that Latvia was elected as a non-permanent member of EU Security Council for 26-27. We hope we'll have active cooperation and defending some questions that are of relevance to our countries. These are principles, these are international laws, and these are prevention of all the activities that pose threat to international order. So at least we have to ensure a minimum stability in the world. So that is a very important activity. So I'm happy once again with this visit, with our bilateral relations, and that we have a chance to celebrate these relations, and we'll have to celebrate this in the future because we have a number of problems that we need to address. Thank you, Minister. Now I'll pass the floor to the Latvian Minister, Baiba Braže.
Thank you so much. Labas rytas. Ačiū gerai. And thank you so much to everyone for being here. Actually, my family, part of my family comes very close from Lithuania's borders. That's why my family name Braže is not so strange to Lithuanians. And I remember in my childhood when growing up in the small village of Barta, close to Škoda, we used to just go back, and forth to Lithuania and do some shopping, and Lithuanians used to come here. So it's, for me, this is also part of being home in Lithuania. And indeed, we are brothers, sisters, but we also have a very important mission in the world. Our two languages are the only both languages in the world. And today we will celebrate that uniqueness of these languages, maintaining the language, developing it, celebrating it. Who else is going to do it if we don't do that? It's only us, Lithuanians and Latvians, remaining to bring it to the world. It's also part of our identity, it's part of our culture, it's part of the EU's richness. So we feel very strongly about our brotherhood and sisterhood with Lithuanians. And then, of course, we covered a lot of politics today already, and we will continue to do that. That involves both the upcoming meeting of the EU foreign ministers on Monday. We start actually already Sunday evening, and as Kęstutis said, we see each other all the time. There's, you know, sometimes I see him more than my own office in the ministry in various places in the world. So there seems to be, why do we meet bilaterally? But actually only bilaterally, when sitting down, you can go into depth and really look at various angles of various issues. So today we already discussed Belarus and certain issues on the border. We discussed migration, that of course both Lithuania and Latvia are under very, very strong migrationary, illegal, instrumentalized migrationary pressure. And we will take measures to make sure that jointly in the EU, but also in a wider spectrum, that those measures are implemented and that our border, as eastern border of the EU and NATO, is recognized under a particular regulation, both with regard to solidarity from other EU member states who are not external borders, and with regard to also our investments that we have done in the border, both for the civil military infrastructure, for countering migration, sanctions implementation, and so on and so forth. So there is significant investment that we all have done as the Baltic states, but also in particular Lithuania and Latvia. So that is another issue that is and will be important also within the EU context. Support to Ukraine, stronger NATO. Yesterday you saw Australia announced that even Australia is sending its planes to strengthen the Eastern Sentry mission of NATO. And again, after NATO put the Baltic Sentry, there has been no violations of undersea infrastructure in the Baltic Sea and damage to it. So we expect that, of course, with stronger presence also in the air, any provocations, any wish to try to create some type of situations that airspace can be violated will decrease significantly and will not be there at all. And then, of course, today is, as I started saying, a day of celebration of the Baltic language. We will award the Baltic Language Award, and that will be something to also look forward to after political discussions. But also, I would like to say that Latvians felt very bitter, but also very happy that we lost to Lithuania in basketball, and not to somebody else. But we will quickly forget it, and we will turn the new page the next time we win. And that is also an element of brotherhood that is very, very important, I think. The passion that we all feel for our teams is uncompared to many other places. So I thank you.
Paldies. Ačiū. Kviečiu.
Thank you. Now members of the media are invited to ask their questions. Please introduce yourself and tell whom you address your question to. Good morning. Lyudmila Petrokova, Elta News Agency. I have a question to both ministers. After incidents in the airspace in Poland and Estonia, do you see a consensus between the allies that we need to step up the protection of our airspace even further and faster, what is already being done? And is NATO considering to simplify the hitting off those planes that violate our airspace? How do you see these considerations? Well, the incidents of airspace infringements did not only happen in Poland and Estonia, but they also happened in Lithuania and in Romania. and they were repeated. The intensity of those attacks and actions of Russia has grown up significantly over the past summer, and they have reached the point where we start looking for solutions. We need to take into account the situation which may escalate very rapidly, and Lithuania had already raised this question in the end of July and June, and I already spoke personally with Secretary General of NATO myself to increase the capacity of the force which could respond to these situations, and we have to look for new measures as NATO that we don't have yet. So the first of all, due to additional capacity, this NATO Eastern Center increases the number of fighter jets in Lithuania, and we need additional capacity in air defense, and we are working on this with our allies. And the second important aspect is the response of entire NATO and the provocations held against NATO. We had expressed solidarity, and unity of NATO is very important, and it is very important for the deterrence effect, sending a united message to Russia. Because there will be attempts to divide NATO. And the third element, which is important, what kind of measures we have that can allow us identify and destroy those drones. So we need to cooperate with those who have best experience and best capacity. So that is Ukraine. We want to take over as much as possible of the know-how and experience from Ukraine. And our goal that we have to achieve has to be similar to what we have in the Baltic Sea with the Baltic Sentry operation, where active cooperation between the Baltic Sea states to prevent further damages to our infrastructure. So we have achieved this result. So we have to achieve this result with other operations and Eastern-centric. And the drones have to be prevented from our airspace, or they have to be destroyed. And they have to get a proper response.
Thank you very much. I largely agree to what Minister Budrys has said. And quite clearly, after a drone, Shahed drone, armed drone, fell into Latvian territory last September. We took both the measures at the NATO level, but also at the national level, and that concerns, as Minister Budrys said, to have those capabilities both to detect and identify drones as early as possible, because that is a key of dealing with the drones. And also we have established a closed airspace at the external border, eastern border of Latvia, to make sure that actually, if we need to take anything down, that we can take it down without doubt, that it is a hostile drone, that it's not some civilian object flying, because, again, we are not at war. Our airspace overall in NATO countries is not closed, unlike in Ukraine, where they convincingly take out anything that is not theirs. In most of our cases, we have lots of civilian objects flying from airplanes to civilian drones to delta planes, paraplanes, and so on and so forth. That's why the airspace by the eastern border is closed, and that's why our armed forces are sure that if necessary, they can deal with various challenges. And then within the on the planes, on the Estonian airspace violation, which was quite significant. Yes, as the military has explained, they acted and they both identified, they indicated, and they accompanied the Russian planes out of the airspace, the NATO F-35 fighter jets. So it was a good posture on NATO's side. If we change the procedures and actually decide to shoot down the planes, Russia will be notified about it. So that is something that Turkey did. Remember, there was a lot of discussion in 2015 how Turkey did that. Turkey, there were numbers, quite many crossings of that small part of Turkish airspace, which Turkey then at some moment said, okay, this is quite enough. They notified Russia that the planes will be shot down if they do it again. They did it. But the consequences were quite significant for both sides. So it's not an easy decision. Political guidance has been given to NATO military allies, military, that violations of airspace are not acceptable. But we will rely, of course, on the military to make sure that they come back with the military advice, and then we are able to decide what's the best way to proceed. But so it's not just take it and shoot it down. There is a whole set of steps to ensure that airspace is not violated. And today, in the drone warfare age, the challenges are significant.
Ačiū, kviečiu užduoti dar vieną.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. BNS News Agency. When we continue the topic of defense, I would like to ask about the EU initiatives. First of all, EU initiative regarding the drone wall, don't you think that it overlaps with NATO initiatives? Because, well, it is a part of a larger project of the protection of the eastern flank. So how do you see those proposals? Do all EU member states see the need for this initiative equally? And if there are some member states who have a different approach, how will you persuade them that we need this drone wall? Thank you. Thank you for your question. Well, indeed, these are highly important initiatives which are directly linked with the protection and security of our airspace and our security in general. And there are several aspects where the EU and NATO can cooperate, and we shouldn't look for divisions, but we should look for synergy here. And synergy of these spaces exists, and the measures that need to be used and applied are those measures that NATO does not have them yet. We have to develop them to integrate the systems which would allow to identify and respond properly, and respond for civilian institutions as well. First of all, that is the responsibility of pre-front states, starting from the north, going to the south. But what is also important when we come to implementation and funding of such large-scale projects, that is a matter of the EU, and that is responsibility of the EU. We are not only protecting our own borders, we are protecting the border of the EU. And we want it to be drone-proof, but we also want to ensure the protection level that would deter Russia, and by not allowing to enter, to cross our borders. So this is why we have all the arguments to say that it is the collective measure and collective benefit, and we have to have collective funding for this. The debates that I see so far in the EU, nobody has doubts that we need to do this. Nobody doubts that we need to curb these violations of the borders and of airspace and our land border. So our response is, if it is a shared matter, we have to implement it all together. And I would like to see a European Commission involved, proactively coordinating certain measures, and I would like to see the funding for this. It will not be a matter of several million and lasting 2 months. It will take us years and years to be prepared as much as possible, so that no new technologies from Russia would infringe our airspace. And we have to invest into that. Lithuania is working on this. After conversations with Commissioner Kubilius and the Commission, we will work on this during our presidency when we finalize the new multi-annual financial framework. And we will have to foresee funds for that. Of course, not all member states approve this, agree to this, but I see some skepticism, but that skepticism is rational. I believe that we will be able to tackle it, and we have to prove that it is useful for everyone. We have to have deterrence at the border, because otherwise we'll have escalation, but we don't need this, and this will come at a price.
Yes, indeed. The joint work to protect the EU's and NATO's airspace has to be there. Again, it's not only about the funding, but also sharing technology, sharing the knowledge, and making sure that ultimately we get the best technology knowledge from Ukraine, because they are the ones literally changing the whole warfare and being able not only to defend themselves, but also to have offensive capabilities, taking out legitimate Russian objects with long-range drones or medium-range drones. So there are various aspects, and all of that is relevant for whatever we decide to call it. It's obviously not a wall per se, but it's a drone defense, drone capability to have it. But it also requires not only drones to have the proper protection and deterrence. It requires missiles, it requires airplanes, it requires all types of other capabilities. So that is what we are doing, where priority is, and EU plays a very important role in all this. If NATO, it's about standards and really military working daily close together. AirCom as a command, NATO AirCom has the whole picture of NATO airspace and is able to direct what and where is necessary. Then, of course, having the right technology, having the right regulations, interoperability, knowledge, and so on, all the enabling type of stuff can come from the EU. And that is where the importance of working together aligns. But it's also about space capabilities. It's also about communications, jammers. There is so much that is happening in that field. So, and we are doing it as we speak with Lithuania, but also with Ukrainians and others.
Spaudos konferencija baigta.
The press conference is closed. Thank you. Wish you a beautiful day.